Hey guys, so today we are going to be pinning up the cows and sorting them out to take the actual cows and one of our heifers. So we're going to be taking them down to my dad's field, which is about a half a mile away to where his bull is. We don't have a bull to get bred so that we have calves coming back onto the homestead next summer.
Here's the round pen where we will be sorting out the cattle. We have got one cow and calf pair that we don't want to be breeding that cow back, but the rest we need to be able to take down to get bred. So having a round pen is a great way, especially if your cattle are not halter broke, which ours aren't, in order to sort them out or tend them if they get injured, that type of thing. It is true of both man and beast, but they definitely are ruled by their stomachs. The cows know the sound of the four-wheeler and the tractor, and when they hear either one fire up, they definitely come running because they know that means they have a really good chance of getting something to eat. Animals definitely have distinct personalities, and it's always interesting to me, and I love to watch them, which ones go in first, which ones are more cautious, and how they interact with each other in the herd. After everybody goes into the round pen, as you can see, it takes some a little bit longer than others. Then we go ahead, shut the door, and then we sprinkle some grain at the farthest point away from the gate as we're sorting them. So we want to be able to keep the majority of the herd, because we are taking the majority of the cows up to be bred, away from the opening as we sort out that mom and calf pair. Even though they're large animals, cows are actually pretty agile. I have seen a cow jump over a 4-foot fence without even having a run at it, and they can be pretty fast. So even though our cows aren't mean, they're not tame enough for us to really pet, and so you definitely want to stay on the balls of your feet when you're working with them. Watch out for any flying hind legs. If you've ever been cow kicked, then you know why I say that. And then as I'm working the fence, I have to be ready to close it just as soon as that cow comes through, because they can push through pretty quick. So if it looks like they're all going to try to come through and not just the red and white faced Hereford we're trying to get out, then I just immediately shut the gate, because honestly, if they all try to get out at once, I'm not going to be fast enough or strong enough to keep the other ones back. I found there's little else that can teach patience as well as working with cattle. They definitely need some prodding as you want to sort them out in direction, but if you try to hurry them up too much or force them into something, they balk, and it's much harder in the long run than if you just take a little bit of time and patience and let them think that it maybe is just a little bit of their own idea. We really need this little guy to get out and join his mama, but he's not sure he really wants to leave the rest of the herd. Definitely decided after all, it's better to be with mom than to stay with the rest of the herd. So now that we've got them separated out, it's time to bring in the stock trailer and get these guys loaded up for their pretty short trip down to the bowl. It's a little bit more tricky actually getting the cows loaded into the trailer than it is just getting them into the pen and sorted out, because they're not going to all go into the trailer at once. And then if they decide to come back out, and of course we've got that door open trying to get the rest of them in, it can sometimes make for a little bit of an interesting time. One of the things that we have found that is the most helpful is to have a little bit of grain or feed at the front of the trailer. It helps keep them calm and it entices them to stay at the front and in once we've got them loaded. Cattle moving and sorting day is definitely a full family affair. You can't see them, but my son is in charge of throwing the gate shut when the cows are loaded into the horse trailer. My daughter is actually on film duty. She's doing a pretty good job right now. And I am at the front of the horse trailer shaking the grain to entice them to come in. And then my husband is giving them a little bit of incentive from the back and keeping them out of the corners to move them in. But that is one thing that I love about this lifestyle is it does require everybody's help, and there's something really special about working together as a family. As a kid, I might not have always appreciated going to fix fence with my dad and carrying fence posts and having to go with him to help feed, but as an adult, I look back and cherish those times, and that's something that I hope will be true for my own children. And I have to say, some of my best life lessons, I did mention having patience when working with cattle, right? Have been learned by working with the livestock and together. And this little guy needs a little bit of incentive to get on up there with mama because we definitely don't want the cow and calf to be separated. So we're heading off with the first load to get these guys dropped off into their new temporary home with the bull for the next month or so. This field and barn and road that you see before you is where I grew up. I learned how to drive an old Ford stick shift in this field when I could barely get, my legs weren't even hardly long enough to push that clutch all the way in. I spent almost every evening during the fall and the winter helping my dad feed the cows. I have helped stack hundreds of bales every single year in that old barn, and some of my most cherished memories are here.
So one of our main concerns is we wanted to make sure that the mom and her baby got put together in the horse trailer because the mom we're only about half a mile away from our field. If she was separated from her baby, she could potentially go through the fence. She's pretty ornery and that mama instinct is pretty strong, and we wouldn't want her, one, to hurt herself going through the fence and then having all of the work of her being loose on the road and trying to get her penned up. So thankfully we were able to get the baby and the mama together into the horse trailer for the first move. And now, as you can see, cattle are complete herd animals. It's how they feel safe, is within the herd. And so we always want to make sure when we're bringing them into a new field like this that we're bringing them, one, far away from the fence and the gate so that we don't have any issues of us getting back through. But secondly, we dropped them off where part of the herd already was at, so that then they felt safe and they could begin their introductions right away. So now we're going back to get the last heifer and loading her up and bringing her back, and then we're done for the day, at least with the cattle moving part. So you can see the corral got a lot smaller. We just kept removing panels so that we could squeeze them up, and especially now that it's just her. And then we just got to reattach them.
Get out of there.
One was pretty fast, so now just a quick trip back up to drop her off, and then they'll be set. They're going to stay with the bull up there. They're not in heat yet. They come in heat cycle about once a month, so we're getting them definitely before the heat cycle, and then we'll leave them up there for a full month just to make sure that they do get bred and are there during an entire heat cycle. And these two are the only ones staying behind. We're not going to breed her back. We're actually going to get rid of her and are keeping some of the other stock, that other heifer, to replace her for breeding. So these two will stay here on the homestead while the rest of the herd is getting moved.
Over a century ago, this dirt road that you see used to actually be where the railroad ran. Now, it was long gone by the time I came through, but there's a small part of me that can still envision it and just hear it chugging across the land.
And the bull is already coming up to say hello to the new ladies. There he is right in the front. And the aftermath. So now comes the clean out. We're gonna have to make sure we get this shoveled out and hosed down. Even though our cows are grass-fed, we do have them grain trained. So we maybe only feed maybe 2 bags of grain an entire year to a herd of 6 cattle, just enough so that they're used to it and they know that sound, so that when we need them to go, like you witnessed today, into a corral, into a stock trailer, or into another section of the pasture, we can easily entice them. Now, the reason that we're bringing this mom and calf pair, that we're bringing them up and putting them in this top pasture, they're the only 2 left behind. And as I said, cattle really are a herd animal. It's how they feel safe, is it within a herd. And because my dad's pasture is so close, they can actually call to one another and hear one another across those pastures. And we don't want her to get out. She had headed down to our back pasture fence line, which is the closest to my dad's fence line, though they both have to go through fences in a road to get to one another. So we decided that it was best to keep her pinned up top here, obviously with her calf, just so that she can't get close to that fence line, and we can keep an eye on her until they settle down enough, because nobody wants to go chasing cows when they get out of fences. So if you enjoyed this video and are curious about raising your own grass-fed beef, you are going to love the podcast series I have starting at episode number 213. So it's the Pioneering Today podcast with me, Melissa K. Norris. And like I said, starting at episode number 213, I dive into raising your own grass-fed beef. And if you're not able to raise your own grass-fed beef, how you can find local grass-fed beef from a local farmer. And we're also going to walk through butcher day, as well as cut and wrap orders, what you want to be able to tell the butcher that you want, so that you get the absolute most out of that meat that you possibly can, because there's a lot of little cuts and different things that the butcher doesn't necessarily know that you're going to want, or that people aren't aware of. Some that you're going to get right on the day of butchering, and then others as the beef ages, and we're going to talk about that in this series as well, and then the different cuts and things to tell the butcher that you want, so that you're able to use all of the animal to fill your freezer and or your canning jars for the year to come. So any podcast app, or you can go straight to the website, but it's the Pioneering Today podcast with Melissa K. Norris, and that specific series starts at episode number 213. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got more questions or would like to see more things, let me know in the comments below. And make sure that you hit subscribe, and when you do, that you hit the little bell so that you get notified as soon as our new videos are released every single week. Okay, now that we've got the animals taken care of, I need to go and get the chickens fed and then get in the house to get supper ready. So I can't wait to see you on the next video, or get to hang out with you via the podcast.